Mishmin Tuhis, good day. Coyote Woman here. Gonna talk about another rant and ramble on the road. I want to point out something. So I recognize that like YouTube and other platforms are getting upset with all of the controversy and conversations about people being misinformed and coming to reactionary conclusions about things. And it's kind of interesting because it's as if people have a superficial notion of something and come to a conclusion about something. Now I'm seeing this exact behavior across all platforms and on many things I witness. My brain is like, I want to hit all these topics and I'm trying to find the best way to segue them. So pretty much when talking about this topic of seeing this across all these platforms, this knee-jerk reactionary element, this cherry picking the convenient parts but not actually having an integral relationship with this other data, this other information. There are people who are coming to conclusions about things. I'll use an example of on TikTok. I saw a post on Instagram of a repost of a TikTok. So, it is TikTok content, however, it was posted on Instagram, and the title said, this person is being accused of child abuse, of engaging a child in a cage, or trapping a kid in a cage, because what we witness of the video is, we hear what sounds like a child crying, and we see cages, animal cages, and the person goes, I get accused of this all the time. This is this person's lived experience. I get accused of having a child in this cage all the time, but here, let me show you what this is. He walks around to the front of the cage and he has a parrot. Okay, he has a parrot, and it shows, and he's like, oh, come on, and he's talking to his parrot. Tell me why TikTok elected to eliminate the audio. The whole point of the video is to inform auditory and visual confirmation of what people assume and what people get. TikTok removed the sound because it's triggering, it's upsetting, it sounds like abuse. It's a parrot mimicking a child crying. And we learned that. That's the point of the video. That's a reactionist theory, reactionist behavior. Knee-jerk reactionary. The same way today's triggered society doesn't actually take any sense of accountability of saying, oh, something set me off. Something set me off, and therefore I need to be introspective about myself and what I need to process. Is this a safe environment for me? I'm being set off by this behavior. Am I safe? Is this something that I need to make aware or make a notice of, be it introspectively or announce to the environment, like, hello, this is pretty severe. This is setting me off, and I think this is possible to set other people off. We should probably talk about consent culture. We should probably talk about pre-disclosed potential warnings, trigger warnings, content warning. Like if we're going to talk about some self-deletion or we're going to talk about some non-consensual violation, can we prepare properly for those of us who have experienced said traumas? That's valid. That's valid. But in today's reactionist methodology, I'm triggered. You need to accommodate me. I'm triggered and it's your fault that you trigger me, so you need to accommodate me. That is what is happening here. Now I see it over and over and over again. I just watched another piece of media on YouTube about what children have to do upon leaving hospitals as well as entering schools, because now that YouTube has this behavior of what type of content is and can't be shared, people are calling it like Vaseliners. I started laughing. I'm just like, Vaseliners, anti-Vaseliners. Oh my gosh. So the content can be shared because there is this reactionary, visceral behavior of saying we don't want any content like this, so therefore anything that has this content is going to be silenced. I understand how people are being misinformed. I understand how the algorithms will only will only assist in exposing people content that they want to consume, which is problematic because if you're only consuming content that you like or want to consume, you're not being exposed to diverse perspectives, diverse ways of bringing in data. And to me, bringing in multiple perspectives is helpful in being able to understand the information that we're interacting with. Now, I see this across the board. This is not just with media consumption. This is decision making. Like if we're only talking in a business environment of like, who's at the table? Who are stakeholders? and we're not getting a sense of a deeper understanding of the history or the nature of the business that we're in, or the history of the location and the space that we benefit off of. I don't know, i.e. we're on stolen native land. Ha, what a concept. Oh, but it's over with. Oh, get over it. No, we're on stolen land. We have a foreign governing structure. And that foreign governing structure tries to be like that spoiled child who says, let's play a game. Oh, by the way, because I'm not winning, I'm going to add a new rule. Oh, I'm going to add a new rule. I'm going to add a new rule. No, you can't do that because this extra rule. So what? Exactly. And it's problematic because what it shows is we're so immersed and so complacent in this system that that's normal. It's normal to say, well, why aren't tribes federally recognized and seen as a sovereign nation in these environments so government to government can have interactions? Wait, did you know that those supposed sovereign nations have to validate and verify themselves within said foreign governing structure that just took over? Why? It's like someone coming into your house saying, this is mine now. Oh, by the way, we have some new house rules. Take your shoes off. You can't cook meat in the kitchen. You have to walk in the door backwards. And then they say, but we will see you as another house owner, like our neighbor, and you can come in here and talk to us like house owners, but you still have to follow this application. You have to walk in backwards and actually show history of how your family walked in backwards and the history of their family walked in backwards, and follow all these rules to validate that we will see you as such a sovereign nation. And many indigenous communities have been able to engage in that format of petitioning and seeking federal recognition, be it through many forms of validating their identity and genealogy and presence in community, their historical, or ironically, the historical transaction with the United States government is a great way of validating existence because, the United States government has receipts and they can't deny their own receipts. Oh, wait, we identified you back then? Yeah, dang it, I guess you do exist. Oh, well, let's add some more rules later on so other people can't pull this off. Yeah, that works. And so this all started with me seeing this problematic behavior of people cherry-picking elements of data and information that they can come to a conclusion about. This all started with me seeing this repetitious pattern of people's behaviors in regards to just having a superficial notion of something and coming to a conclusion. Really, like, someone explained to me the whole TikTok thing. If the point of videotaping a parrot crying like a kid and saying, I've been accused of having a kid in a cage, why would a app that likes to celebrate videos and audio want to silence that? It's reactionary. And you're probably wondering, like, why am I so irritated with this? Why am I like a dog with a bone? I'm a freaking coyote for one. Well, it's a little smaller sounding. Tight throat. What it is this is the type of community we are encouraging and allowing. This is the type of behavior that is so pervasive, and it's in every layer. It's in every layer of business, it's in every layer of governing structure, it's in every layer of educational environment. It is what helps make decisions and finalizes legislation, puts rules and laws into place, structured protocols, and it's problematic because it's showing that we're not voicing the importance of learning multiple perspectives. It's just saying, oh, you're just going to give me important data about this one particular side, and I'm going to come to a conclusion because I validate and verify it. And so when I see that, it's very frustrating. It's the same way that I see Western settler colonial science. yes, it's been very helpful getting us to where we are. It has advanced societies. It breaks apart, puts together. It gets to have a deep understanding of how something functions, how something works, but it doesn't understand holistic systems and how things impact other things, and the uniqueness of if this, then that. And because that's hard to replicate. Holistic systems are not very convenient for that format of learning and navigating decision-making and procedural observation and understanding, and I get it. But Western science is not be-all, say-all, end-all. It's quite problematic to say that that is the only way to see things. It is a doctrine, and it continuously develops. It continuously changes. So what was fact in science 10 years ago has either been debunked or researched more to find out that there's more information about how that came to be. We're always learning that. And so when it comes to getting an understanding of how things are and how things come to be, we need to understand that Western science is just a tool, just another method of learning more. And when I say that, I'm trying to point out that, like, even with Western science, placebo effect, 30% of placebo utilized instances solves and fixes problems. And I'm trying to think, like, and Western science is still dumbfounded as to why or how that works. And it's frustrating because, one, the power of the mind, the power of spirit, the power of holistic systems, and yeah, there is no blanket be-all, say-all, end-all in regards to how something will work. Like, that is why, various supplements and other things are labeled as such, because, like, it's not a blanket theory guarantee to fix or work or solve said problems. And it's just really frustrating and annoying that people lean to this Western science as a be-all, say-all, end-all, because yet again, it's coming to a knee-jerk reactionary assumption that this is the data to lean to. This is the only perspective to learn from. This is the only verified, validated fact of problem solving and navigating this solution building. And it's frustrating because indigenous teachings and indigenous pedagogies usually share insight of how things are, how things came to be. And of course it's different. And sometimes it can be hard to accept, especially if you've only been brought up in one paradigm, only been brought up with one format, one pedagogy, like Americentric pedagogies happen to be focused on capitalism. The Americentric, post-colonial, post-industrial era teachings don't have a sense of understanding of responsibility, reciprocity, humility, or accountability to the environment and sacred living systems. It is entitled, it is affluent, it is negligent of the sacred, it is divorced its sense of accountability to how we as humans impact our environment and how our decisions and actions and words impact not only ourselves, our community, and when I say community, I also am including all of our living relatives, from the green elements, from the elements to the green relatives, to the winged, to the creepy crawly, to the finned, to the fly, all that. We need to recognize how we impact our community and are accountable to that. Humans will always impact their environment. And people love to romanticize indigenous cultures, but humans are humans. However, indigenous pedagogies have been sustaining communities since time immemorial. And it has been due to population boom and colonization of outsiders coming into a new territory, deeming what they believe is correct and what they believe is right, and they imbue and embody their agenda and their focal point as to being the only correct pedagogy of living and operating. And so colonization has deeply impacted many nations around the world, and that behavior is not so healthy because it is not place-based knowledge. It's not compassionate or understanding of the bioregion and the watershed. It doesn't understand how things are of that territory and area. It is usually an outside mindset and focused on what it wants, be it of resource or of expansion or whatever reason. And so we need to look at this history of colonization and how we came to be where we are in community today, because people are trying to say, what's wrong with the world? This is what's wrong. We have these big corporations, and this is what's wrong. Settlers and colonizers are bad, or this is wrong, or that's wrong. And I'm like, everything, how things came to be the way they are, is part of the reason why we are struggling and having the problems that we're having. It has conditioned us. We are now complacent. We are brought up in an environment where we think, sex and money is king, where we think things are available to us to capitalize off of, because that is just the point of survival, because we've been taught, that Native Americans or Native people or indigenous people are primitive, are savage, are hunter-gatherer, because we've been taught, and we've been force-fed this narrative. And by being force-fed this narrative, we're taught to dismiss that, that these indigenous cultures actually sustain themselves. They were their own ecologists, their land managers. They were the original farmers. Just because farming wasn't of row crops, just because it wasn't of a certain irrigation system, Native peoples had amazing irrigation systems. Much of our practices and teachings actually come from indigenous cultures from around the world and align. Like, a lot of our farming methodologies in America happen to be from black and brown, both indentured servants and slaves. Just because a white supremacist culture allowed the slave owners to hold patents of the creations and the tools of resource and methodologies of farming and advancing said farm technology, who was on the ground? Who was planting the seeds? Who were the laborers? Who were the ones compassionately understanding the ecology of the area? From the soil, microorganisms, to paying attention to climate change. It's people on the ground. And I'm not trying to do this whole brown versus white thing, because white fragility is so bratty. Fragility in general, but settler culture is, Western settler colonial mentality is actually a pervasive mindset that is pervasive beyond colorism. So black, brown, yellow, red people can embody this behavior. It surpasses classist systems as well, socioeconomic disparities. And it's because it's a mindset, it's a behavior, it's a way of looking upon the world. And it's both of entitlement, of affluence, but also of trauma. When you think about trauma, one of the biggest traumas is of colonization, of ripping indigenous peoples, indigenous cultures away from their way of navigating the world by deeming them illegal or deeming them wrong. When we think about, even so, as an indigenous person, like, the first time the Native American had the right to practice religion freely was 1978. 1978! It's 10 years older than me. I was taught America was founded on freedom of religion and freedom from persecution. For who? So when I talk about a white supremacist culture, our entire governing structure and most of our legislation and methodologies of rules and structure happen to be catered to that. And then fragility steers the conversation. Like, have you ever thought about how civility politics? Oh, if you just said this nicely, or if you just were a bit more receptive, or you get more flies with honey than vinegar. You're trying to silence passion. You're trying to silence a perspective, be it emboldened with passion or intensity. Because if someone has a perspective, yes, it would be nice for them to speak diplomatically or calmly about said issue versus screaming or taking action and fighting. Sure, I understand how civility politics can play a role in saying, hey, can we come to the table calmly? But you know what? If we talk about coming to the table, why is that table there? Who put that table there, and why is it important that people come to the table? Is it possible to even get in the room? Do people want to be in that room? Who is in that room and whose perspective is being shared? But also, can I get into that building? Is it accessible? I'm a neurodivergent individual, and I'm only recently suffering and navigating chronic pain, and I'm realizing how messed up of an ableist society we have. But just like that thing I just noticed of a unique perspective, we don't know what we don't know. I didn't know this. Why? Because the perspective wasn't shared in my educational environment. Empathy. communication, introspection, accountability. All of these things need to be shared to young lives. Reading, writing, arithmetic is important. And of course, schools are going to say, well, that's not our job, it's the parents' job. But if the parents have been brought up in that same education system and their parents weren't taught how to teach them the more competent values of introspection and healthy communication and problem solving and conflict solution building, how are they ever going to teach that to their kids? So of course, if a school says it's not our job to talk about it, but then the parents go, I don't know what to talk about, or this is not of my value set, who is being taught and how and what? So when I get mad at this, I see all these overlying layers and these patterns. This lack of humility, this lack of empathy, this lack of accountability, because everyone's so focused in their concept of what life is about, be it get a job, save money, focus on a career, or do something good for the world, or get ahead in life, or invest, or try and get rich. It's just very, very frustrating because we're destroying the earth and we're destroying each other. We're hurting other people by being negligent and not being accountable to how our actions and words impact our community. And I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm trying to say, be accountable, be aware. I have problems with all of those solutions that people try and say, this is the way the world should be. Like, everyone should go vegan. Oh, hell no. Hell no, I'm an omnivore. But I also recognize that many of my vegan friends have amazing argument points that are valid. I'm not a fan of our slaughter system. I'm not a fan of people owning genetics of plants. I'm not a fan of our industrial systems, because our industrial systems hurt the earth. We need more accountable measures, but the problem is because everyone's so focused on capitalism, they say it's not cost productive, it's not it's cost prohibitive. And with things being cost prohibitive, they're not being done. Not because it's not right, no, because it's inconvenient. Oh, it's inconvenient because people don't want to try it. Because their priorities are skewed. Because they've been informed and educated by a system that is quite problematic and that they don't even know the history of. They don't know the history of how we came to be where we are. Why it is things are the way they are. From the laws that are the way they are to our communities being together the way they are. They just don't even know. And that's heartbreaking. That's frustrating. And that's what I want to raise awareness to. And I just want to say, like, think about it. Please. Consider what does it mean to learn from as many perspectives as possible of many things. And question how we got here. Question how things came to be the way they are. And push back. Don't let narratives of fragility and lack of accountability, lack of reciprocity to our environment and to our communities. As an Indigenous community member, I was taught that the plants and the animals, they came first. I was also taught that if I'm going to harvest plants or medicine that I'm going to utilize, from as simple as I'm picking a flower for Mother's Day, to clearing weeds, to eliminating them from an area, to harvesting plants for medicine, honor the life that's lived and the gift that's given. My mother taught me, even when I was 4, 5, 6, how to engage in ethical and sustainable harvesting methods. I didn't even know what those words meant. I didn't know what those words meant, but I conducted myself appropriately. I would let the plants know where they're going. I would make an offering to the plants, thanking them. I would sing to them. I would care about their water sources and pay attention to their surroundings and what's around them. I would know the patterns. I would know if there's less water in the area. I would know if there's runoff of poison. I would notice if the plant changed, if someone else harvested or picked from this plant and this medicine. If I'm eliminating weeds, I'll find a way to utilize them. Rip them up and either compost them or take them to another area or utilize them. Like, ooh, it's always great to have, a win-win situation of like harvesting a lot of plants because they need to be thinned out and then use them for something else. That's logic. That's an indigenous pedagogy. That's a teaching, and it can be applied in the modern day. Like from as simple as, well, when you think about it, like I'll call out one of my permaculture circles. So I have a permaculture design certificate, and I speak to classes about indigenous teachings and traditional ecological knowledge and perspective sharing, and through that I voice ways of like how we navigate the world today. Like, we can't go back to the past. We can't do things the original way because, one, our ecological environment is not the same, and also we in community and such is it's just not the same. However, we can lean to these teachings, lean to these practices, and apply them in the now with accountability, humility, reciprocity, and just present-mindedness. And so one of them is suddenoaklife.org engages in fire mimicry and conducts fire mimicry classes and workshops. And part of it is like if a tree is suffering from potential disease or an infection, the facilitator can actually conduct surgery, like cutting out an abscess in the tree, and then we scrape off the moss and take off the lichen from the tree, and we then apply a lime wash. Now, by applying the lime wash, one, it discourages bugs because white lime wash on the base of the tree will have bugs that are crawling up look more noticeable to birds, so easy pickings, as well as a protective layer. Because if we cannot actually steward the land with fire, we have to mimic elements of what fire would do. Fire would lick the bark and the base of the tree, not these scary canopy fires that we are suffering from. Why? Oh gee, Native peoples have not been able to conduct themselves spiritually and culturally since contact. We have multiple waves of genocide. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and 250 plus years ago, the Portola expedition, where California was taken over by Spain, and we have the missions, and then we have Mexican occupation, where California was Mexico for a short window of time, and Native peoples of the territory were deemed illegal, deemed foreign, deemed inconvenient that we were where we were, home. And then the gold rush, $5 a head, 50 cents a scalp. So we have waves of genocide against indigenous peoples. So we've been deemed illegal, not allowed to conduct ourselves spiritually, culturally, and manage the land traditionally with fire. Wow, Native peoples were land managers with fire? Wow, I didn't know those primitive hand-and-mouth survivalist hunter-gatherers knew about that. It's very frustrating when that narrative is so pervasive. It denies the potential of this perspective and this understanding and this awareness. So I'm trying to point this out because, coming back to my example of Sudden Oak Life, making a lime wash for an oak tree. The lime wash needs a bonding agent. Milk is pretty convenient for that. And because it is a superficial application, it doesn't need to be edible. Meaning, as long as it's not curdling. If the milk is too old for today's community members to consume and to buy, the grocery stores can get rid of it, give it to this organization, either freeze it or whatever, and we can start making more lime wash because it will be applied externally and utilized. That's a native pedagogy. The same when it comes to, we need to know truth in history. We need to know truth about what it is that we're working with and how we're navigating. Like, think about the sociological and cultural impact of how, well, today's pandemic times has impacted our society, where more people are consuming digital media. More people are consuming digital media, and let's just talk about like ASMR and TikTok trends of makeup. People putting on tons of makeup, taking it off and doing it again, taking it off, doing it again. Do people know where their makeup comes from? Have you seen any of those ASMR videos that will just like take the makeup and scrape it and watch things break? Or make the slime and put a whole bunch of glitter into it just to be like, ooh, look, and popping sounds and looking pretty. What is that little slime ball gonna do after you're done with that video? What are you gonna use it for? What are you gonna do when you've just broken up all of that makeup? You did it for the video, for the instant gratification. Is there any consideration of that use or waste? Do you know where your makeup comes from? Do you know that there are child slaves digging tunnels in mica mines because patterns of supply and demand and consumption are what rule our current environment? So, if we knew more about our sources and our resources, and seeing that our consumption and our behaviors of consumption is quite problematic. Like, let's talk about a little gem, the FDA. Yes, the FDA helps make sure people are safe, helps make sure people aren't abused, helps make sure we're not being sickened by bad practice or procedure, but also it is very focused on the well-being of the corporation that is invested in it, i.e. profit-driven focal points, like Sephora and Ulta. When a product is on the shelf for a long time and it no longer can sell, they can waste or dispose of that product and take a loss. But they don't put it in the dumpster. Why? Because people learn they can go dumpster diving. They don't want people benefiting off of it, and because they took a loss, they can't donate it because that's double dipping. So they destroy brand new products. There's a whole chapter or channel or there's subreddits on this. There's TikToks about our capitalistic behavior of waste and how frustrating it is, and how people are so complacent to it, or they are just a small being and they don't know how to navigate pushing back. They get punished. People get fired for saving food that they are told to waste or destroy. And it's all for the sake of protecting a corporation or business. We don't want to get sued. We don't want to get in trouble for health reasons, like extra food at a restaurant or extra food at a store. We don't want people to sue or get sick if we gave it out to anybody. It's just like, we're not thinking about humanity here. We're not considering how our actions and words impact our environment. The same goes when it comes to the modern conveniences of we need all these buildings and roads. Do you ever consider what is beneath the asphalt? What is beneath the concrete? Did you know that the soil beneath the concrete will never feel the rain, will never feel the sunlight? People get mad at nature and animals crossing the road. If any of you have seen that YouTube of the woman saying, "Why is the deer crossing sign here? The deer should know to cross somewhere else." What? I pray that was satire. However, I've seen some frustrating community members that are just not present, or just not aware of perspective, not empathetic, not understanding, not just anything. But do you ever consider that it's humans and our pattern of destruction and disruption that has created the roads that cross the forest? Not the animals crossing the road because it's inconvenient. And all this started off of a smaller rant. So I ask you to consider these things. I ask you to just take a moment and think about the perspectives that we don't know what we don't know. But consider it. Take a moment and say, why are things the way they are? What is this word decolonize? What is this word re-indigenize? Why are all these natives protesting? Why are these communities uprising? Many of us benefit from rules and regulation around protecting human rights because other people protested it and rioted. These governing structures that take control and maintain control, when we challenge them, when we push back and just say, humanity, environmentalism, humility, consideration, we can stand strong and united for the well-being of the future generations. So take a moment, and when you find yourself judging or reacting or just cherry-picking convenient elements of an argument because it suits your side. Take a moment and consider other perspectives. Why are other people talking this way? What is it about their perspective that is different than mine? And the same way, if I were a dictator and what I says goes, I can say, I proclaim that all hands are only knuckles, hair, fingernails. There's no such thing as fingerprints. There's no such thing as palms. It's all tops of hands. It's all creases. It's all looser skin. This is the only perspective of what a hand is. If you dare and say it is otherwise, I will punish you. I will change protocol and legislation because I do not understand, nor do I see or comprehend that there is other perspectives to this. And this happens with women's rights and bodies. This happens with rules and legislations of individuals and communities that approach things differently. It's who's in control and who's controlling the narrative, and how have they been informed, and what have they learned when navigating this. I only see this. If I were that dictator. You see this. It's kind of messed up, right? If I were in control and only saying this goes. That's how we are as humans in every interaction. Are we trying to learn from different perspectives? Everything. Or as much as possible. So, that's my Coyote rant. I also am at my destination. So, around the corner. But, I know I rambled. And I do hope I make sense. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your consideration. I appreciate those who just want to take a moment to hear another rant. Because, I'm just a wild and crazy coyote. And y'all can judge me, and I'm going to have haters per usual. You know, the internet is an intriguing place, but consider how you are. Consider who you are. I know the internet can be like an anonymous place, and you could treat people poorly and disrespectfully. Why?